Welcome to the tnAchieves Virtual Community Service webinar. These webinars are designed to provide you, Tennessee Promise students, with an opportunity to learn more about college success tips, careers in your potential field of study, and other topics we think you will find interesting while you are navigating your educational journey. These webinars will also help you complete your community service requirement while it may be difficult for you to do so at this time. A few housekeeping details before we get started. By logging in as a tnAchieves student, we are able to track your attendance and how long you remain actively engaged during the webinar. Once you complete the webinar, you will automatically be given credit for 1 hour of community service. We will track how long you watch, and if you do not watch the webinar in its entirety, you will not receive credit. You do not need to complete the community service form for these webinars. tnAchieves will log your hours for you. tnAchieves staff and partners across the state are providing important insight and information we think you will find entertaining and informative. We hope you enjoy this new series of webinars. Welcome to the tnAchieves Virtual Community Service webinar series, where today we are talking about social media, careers in social media do's and don'ts. We've got a panel of experts with us today that I'm really excited about. We have Leslie Armstrong, who's a freelance writer and social media manager with Town Square Media and Sounds Like Nashville, Cody Howell, who's the founder of Nashville Noise, and Thomas Dotson, who's a brand strategist with Brand Builders Group. I want to thank all three of you for being here today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Yeah, looking forward to it.
We're excited to have you guys. And, you know, social media is one of those things that there's a lot of benefit. There's a lot of positive. We also know that it can be a tricky slope to manage sometimes. So I'm excited about this conversation today. And then, you know, it's something that it has now and in recent years become something you can do for a career. So excited to dive into that as well. Thomas, why don't we start with you, and I'll kind of have all you guys start with the same question. But if you'll just tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, if you went to college, degrees maybe that you've earned, and a little summary about your career.
Absolutely, happy to. And thanks for having me again. So my name is Thomas Dodson. I am new to Nashville. I've only been here in Nashville since Thanksgiving of this past year. So still learning the lay of the land, 5 months in. Absolutely love Nashville. For the past 15 years, I've been in Sacramento, California. My background is in journalism. So I spent 10 years in television news, and around 2009, it was around 11 years ago, I started to see this void in the business landscape where people were just businesses, nonprofits, individuals, elected officials, candidates were just not leveraging this new tool that was on the rise of social media. They just weren't doing a very good job of delivering a message and engaging an audience. And I thought, well, I've got this background in journalism and marketing, and so I kind of see the alignment here of the written word, of content, of how this stuff could come together. So let me jump in here and see if there's an opportunity to merge this burgeoning social media, if you will. We had social media for a while, but around 2009, I think is really when it started to click that this was going to be here for a while and that businesses should be leveraging this. So that's exactly what I did. Is I planted my flag and I went out into the world and I said, hey guys, I have this background in journalism. I know how to write. I know how to write succinctly. I know how to punch up verbs. I know how to make this stuff sizzle. And let's see if we can leverage this in the social media sphere. So I went out and grabbed a few clients, a few friends, and said, hey, let's work with your businesses. Let's try to leverage social media to get you guys more engagement, more eyeballs, and ultimately more customers. And it worked. And so from then to now, this has been one of my primary areas of focus, has been social media strategy for businesses, for nonprofits, for elected officials, for political candidates, you name it. And then the implementation of the social media strategy as well.
Great. Thanks so much for sharing a little bit about that. And you said a lot of things there that we're definitely going to take a deeper dive into as we go. Leslie, what about you? You want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Well, I'm Leslie. I moved here from Arkansas about 20 years ago, attended Belmont University and earned a degree in marketing with a minor in music business. My career began at Bullseye Marketing, where I managed social media pages for about 10 years and wrote different news articles for their website. I switched jobs in 2019 for an associate editor's position at trade publication All Access Music Group, where I also handled the social media and wrote articles and whatnot. This year, I decided to begin my own freelance career handling social media pages and writing articles for various music publications such as Town Square and Sounds Like Nashville, which is owned by Universal Music Group. So that's basically me in a nutshell.
Yeah, very cool. Thanks for sharing. And Cody, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I grew up here in Franklin. I went to the University of Tennessee at Chattanooga, got a degree in communications with a minor in English, knowing that I wanted to pursue journalism. I strongly pursued video journalism in college and kind of got my feet wet with social media kind of when Facebook came out. That tells you how old I am. And after that, I decided I actually wanted to travel. So I kind of took a different perspective when it came to my career. I took a couple of years off, and then as soon as I came back, I decided to hardcore pursue journalism. Got a job in Alabama as an entertainment journalist, and then moved back to Nashville and started pursuing kind of a freelance career. And then about 3 years ago, decided to start my own website. And on the side, I still freelance and I manage social media pages. I've managed social media pages for people who have 100,000 followers. So I've kind of balanced it all a little bit now.
Great. Well, again, thank you guys all for being here today. We're really excited to kind of dive into social media and the ways that you use it around your different careers and just general advice for students. Leslie, let's kind of start out with you. How do you use social media to kind of leverage and market the work that you do?
Sure. Well, usually I try to post any articles that I have done for my personal social media accounts to keep active and to make sure everybody knows where I am and who I'm being published by, especially for publicists, because they always look at content to see where you are and to give you stories. It helps with, building a brand for yourself, to have your personal pages reflect who you are as a professional, but you can also have fun with it. I think that for me, it helps me connect to different fans of the genre country music and to keep the promotion alive in that respect, as well as get new jobs and build my brand as far as my career is going as a freelancer. And handling other people's social media is great too at different concerts or if they're promoting music. It's really about what they're trying to get out there and making sure that it stays centric of the product that you're promoting.
Yeah, it's an easy way to reach a lot of people really quickly, which I think we're going to talk about here in just a second. Cody, as you were launching Nashville Noise, new website, how did you use social media to help get the word out?
Well, I was starting the Nashville Noise brand, but I also had a personal brand that I had been working on for years. That was very, very, very helpful in getting the word out about Nashville Noise because my Twitter followers were interested in what I was going to be promoting. The community was kind of the same. So that helped me a lot as far as getting the word out. And then just obviously staying active and kind of keeping everything relatively the same with a slightly different view, whereas my personal is a little bit more fun, and then Nashville Noise is a little bit more business-based. Excuse me.
I really love that, Cody. I think that's just a fantastic way to go about it. And Leslie, you talked about that too, of the business side of things and the personal side of things. And one of my favorite things about social media is how it's really allowed us to personify in a way businesses. It's no longer these cold shut off doors to a company. Social media is really a portal into a company. And so it's allowed us to, give life to a company, a business, give a personality, give a voice to a business where prior to the social media world, we didn't have that. It was very stodgy. It was very cold. And so I think it's really done a lot to warm businesses up. And you see a company on Twitter, you see a company on Facebook, and we all know that there's a person on the other side of that post. There's a person responding to the comments. I mean, obviously, we do have bots, but a lot of it is the human element. And so that's been one of my favorite things of seeing how businesses have really come to life using social media.
Yeah, Thomas,
definitely in the creativity. Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I think one thing to add about that is, as far as businesses and brands are concerned, I think people maybe don't realize how important social media is in the sense that you want to have a conversation with your followers. It's not just about you posting. It's about having an engaging conversation that they can join in on.
Definitely.
Thomas, I want to kind of build upon something that you were just talking about there. You talked about kind of bringing a personality and a life to some of these organizations, businesses, companies. When you look at maybe someone like MoonPie, who's like very, maybe for lack of a better word, like playful online versus maybe an organization or a company that keeps it a little more professional. What do you think how do you think companies choose to balance that? How do you think they decide which one is right for their brand?
Well, I think it really comes down to the company itself and their product. I mean, you have to have some levity you can have some levity if you're talking about a chocolate bar or a cheeseburger or a cookie. I wouldn't expect that same kind of levity to come from an investment firm, or somebody on Wall Street. So it just allows us to have fun. And if you just think about the commercials you see on television, when you see a commercial for Oreos, they're playful, they're fun, they're lighthearted. When you see a commercial for, Edward Jones, they're not playful and light. So it really just furthers that personification and that voice that companies have already and gives them a chance to do that on a 24/7 basis versus just a 30-second snippet that you'll see while you're watching television in the evening.
And what about, I think this is different with social media as opposed to maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago. You're watching a commercial on TV. Obviously, there's data around demographics that are watching certain channels at certain times. So companies think they're reaching their target audience. But as social media, people are following willingly. So they know that they're reaching out to people that have chosen to follow them. How has that dynamic changed the way that companies interact with their customers?
It's huge. It's everything. Data is everything. I mean, we have instant access to all of that information now. And you think about even going back a little bit further to a print ad. If you were to run an ad in a magazine or a newspaper, which are still fantastic ways to reach a targeted audience, but you're basing that ad spend on what the company tells you their viewership or readership is. So if I were to go place an ad in a local business publication, they would tell me that they reach 30,000 people a month. Well, that's great. Their audience is working professionals of a certain age and a certain income, and they have reached this many people. Fantastic information. But the social media allows you to get so granular. It's so granular. So it's not just the big demographics. You can get into psychographics. What do people like? When do they consume their content? The age, the specific location. So it's the data that comes from social media is far beyond anything that we've seen in any other medium.
Yeah, and Cody, I'll ask you something similar. How are you deciding, and Thomas talked about how data is everything. How are you deciding what content to post, and how are you tracking which posts are more successful than others?
So I try to analyze all my social media platforms every week. It's not a deep dive. I'll go pretty deep on my analytics like once a month at the end of the month, trying to see, okay, well, this was the most engaged tweet that I sent. This was the most liked post on Facebook. And that kind of tells me what to do for the following month when I'm scheduling, because I try to schedule everything out about a month in advance, which, I mean, right now is obviously not a time when I can do that because things are changing with life every day right now with this pandemic. But so I kind of try to keep an eye on everything. And I think once you really learn your brand, it's so much easier to do that. The deep dive takes me, 30 minutes. Whereas when I first started creating this brand, it would take me a couple hours to go through everything to see what was really working and what wasn't. So I try to use that. And, there's so many free things that you can use to track analytics without having to pay for anything before you're really ready to.
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on too, is not only do the social media reach, obviously a greater audience than most conventional advertisement did in radio or in magazines and conventional things, but social media also is free for people like us to promote our content. And I think that's great to really build on and see what organically we can do with our content. And that's what I try to do with different profiles. And then on top of that, create advertisement that helps, build their brand more. But I think when you're producing the type of content that people like, you'll have a following that will come down the line because they want to see the content such as country music news or, Cody's fashion blog or, whatever they're interested in. If you really keep to the brand that you're trying to promote and not, going too many different alleys, you'll really succeed in having a good social media site.
And I think, too, it's important to remember that just because it's working this month doesn't mean 3 months from now that it's still going to be working.
Oh, yeah.
So you really have to keep track of those things because it's changing so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And Leslie, as a freelance journalist, part of your job is making sure that publications are finding, or that you're building interest in publications to print what it is that you're working on and what you're writing. So how are you using social media to leverage that?
For views on their website, basically that is helping tremendously to reach country fans using social media. I mean, they constantly are looking for news and content and the latest updates. With my work that I did at Bullseye Marketing, I built a brand from the ground up with their website called Nashville Country Club. And I had to really position ourselves as being a Nashville country site. And Nashville's such a huge entity right now. It's so popular. So people would always be interested in what is happening in Nashville and what's going on with country music artists' lives. And I also developed a video platform as well as Cody did, interviewing artists on YouTube and making sure that people had up-to-date, information on their favorite artists. I think it's amazing to reach a worldwide, level of country fans because most people overseas don't have country radio, country music on their radio stations. So all they have is YouTube. I had an intern from the UK who found new artists through YouTube, and that's how she knew about the current day country music artists. So stuff like that, I think, is important to use social media for and to build, whatever product you have or service you have. It's just a great way to connect to people in a way that we haven't had before.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I'll kind of throw this out to the entire panel. We've got a lot of students that are interested in entrepreneurship. We've got, I know we've got a student in Chattanooga who's written some books and is under the age of, I think, 22 or so, written some books and seen some success. And we've got another student in Memphis who's done some inspirational speaking kind of roles. So for our students that are interested in that and building their own brand, or maybe they're launching something like Nashville Noise, what advice do you have for them, and how can they use social media to leverage what it is that they're doing and promote their personal brand?
Well, I'll jump in here for a second and take that one. One of the things that we work with a lot of individuals who are building their personal brands, and I think Leslie touched on this a little earlier. It's really about finding that voice and staying true to that voice. We get so distracted, and there's so many things to talk about, and there's so many, things that we want to post and share. But when you have a singular voice in the social media landscape, you're going to cut through the noise like a hot knife through butter. And it's really finding out, who am I? What problem am I trying to solve for the world? Who is my audience? And staying on target. We all want to break through the wall. We all want to become famous. We all want to be known for these things. And it's so much easier when you have the concentrated power, all guns firing in the same direction. So instead of making your social media world about politics and food and travel and all of these things, every time you do that, you start to dilute that message a little bit. So staying on brand is one of the best ways to do just what you're describing.
Leslie or Cody, you guys have anything to add? Any advice for students looking to build a brand?
I mean, I kind of feel like
go ahead. Yeah, sure.
No, go ahead.
Oh goodness,
I
don't want to. You haven't talked in a while.
No, I was
just going to add.
What Thomas said was perfect.
Yeah, Yeah, that's what I was going to add too. And just, having fun with it. I know that we've been very serious talking about staying on brand, and Thomas mentioned about, giving it a personality. And I feel like you can have fun with it. You can just, just enough to the point that you're not, reflecting something that is going to cause too much of a stir and give yourself a bad reputation. Me and Cody both have dogs, and we freely use our dogs as a way to communicate things to our followers. And I feel like there's great ideas with animals or with other things that you can do to really have a great time with it. I mean, there's all kinds of influencers that I follow and that she follows, and that we learn, so much for them. So I think observing to see what other people are doing and staying on the trends is equally important. That's it. Sorry.
Yeah. And I think too, as far as when it comes to students trying to build their brand, I think it's more important as a student to be more professional than you might be at our age, whenever we can have a little bit more of a personality. I mean, I definitely think having a personality is important, but you don't want to be sharing photos of things that whenever you're going through a job search is going to help you not get a job. You really want to be careful about that at a young age, I think. I see so many young people making that mistake still. And it's something that you think we've talked about enough that people realize you have to be careful with that. But it seems to be that young people still don't understand how important that is.
Yeah, Cody, you kind of transitioned right into what I want to talk about next, but also you've somehow leveraged I follow Cody on social media, both National Noise and Cody's personal account, and you've somehow leveraged your Twitter to get a Chipper Jones birthday shout out every year, which I'm a little jealous of.
This is very true. He actually,
your dog is named Chipper too.
Yes. And whenever I met him for the first time, he knew me from Twitter. I was like, this is the greatest day ever. I can die now. I'm done.
Would you say that was more strategic or just sheer harassment?
Probably sheer harassment.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. So I'm glad we're on the same page. Thomas, you sent over a brief bio before we kicked this off, and so I got to read a little bit about you. But you talked about some of the things that you've done in your career, but said nothing was maybe quite as terrifying as learning about a teenager's social media account. And Cody started to touch on this next question I have for you guys, but what are some of your social media do's and don'ts? We hire a lot of people out of college, and we're looking at social media. So as our students are progressing through college and beginning to think about a career, what are some of your do's and don'ts?
Well, I could go all day on this one, so I'll try to be as brief as possible. A few years ago, I have two daughters, and they were 8 and 10 at the time, and I really started thinking about what role social media was going to play in their lives. And I partnered with a professor at Sacramento State University, and we ran a series of focus groups with young people. And our goal was to come out of this with some compelling message that we could share with young people about how to best use these digital products that we have, social media, gaming consoles, the whole 9 yards. And what we really realized early on, and just has been, it really transcends all conversations we have with young people. And it's the saddest part is that parents are largely absent from their kids' digital lives. Moms and dads are pretty much not paying attention to what their kids are doing on their phones, who they're texting, what they're posting, what they're consuming, what websites they're visiting. And so we have a program that I go out and I talk to parent groups primarily about how to be the best digital parent they can be. And what that really translates down to young people is understanding that these devices are portals to the world. They're not diaries. This is not a place to go and put your most private thoughts. It's not a locked book that's going to be under your mattress. Anything that goes into your phone can come out. Anything that you receive can get out. So think very hard. And we used to have this, this old term we threw around a long time. Would you say anything or write anything you wouldn't want printed on the front page of the New York Times? And I think it still really holds true. Anything that you would text to someone, anything that you would share, any photo that you would take, any photo that you would receive from a friend and laugh about, all of those things live in perpetuity. Now, Snapchat doesn't just disappear in 24 hours. I'm sorry to tell you. All of that stuff lives on servers and can come out with the right warrants. So it is huge and as scary and as big and audacious as this topic is, I think the primary thing to remember is these are portals in and out, these devices that we have in our hands constantly. So just remembering that anything you do can come back to you. And I know that's a huge concept for a young person. I mean, if someone had told me that at 15 and 16, it probably would have gone right over my head, because thinking about long-term ramifications is not something that young people are naturally programmed to do. But all of those pictures of you with a red Solo cup in your hand at a party on your Instagram, they can come back to bite you. A few years ago, the big thing was, hiring managers at businesses are starting to look at people's social media accounts to see whether or not they'd be great candidates. Well, then it became college admissions officers were looking at high school students' social media accounts to see what kind of posts they were posting and would they be a good fit for their school. And just a couple of years ago, I heard a story about a middle school student who was trying to move up into a leadership role at the high school where he was going to be going next year, and he was denied because of some of the things that he had posted on his Instagram account. So again, those posts, seemingly fleeting, seemingly innocuous, can have real long-term ramifications. So just be as careful as you possibly can. And if you don't want it written in the sky, don't share it.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I know Cody and I are the same age, and I know Facebook was invented my freshman year of college, and we had no idea what kind of lasting impact Facebook would have, and it was only for college students. And look at how it's evolved today. Leslie and Cody, Thomas talked a little bit about maybe the perils of social media. What about for high school, college students? Maybe some of the do's of social media, or you can, if you have anything to add on, maybe the do nots.
I would, kind of do not. I think, or I guess this could be a do, is if you're trying to post about something that's trending or something that's timely in the news, I think being sensitive is something that's incredibly important. I've seen some people who've been posting about COVID-19 right now, and they can be incredibly insensitive posts. They're trying to make a joke, and sometimes it's not as funny. And I think being sensitive in times like this, or in any type of news situation, is very important. And then I kind of think another do is sticking to your brand, as we've all kind of drilled into your heads at this point. Those are two of my biggest things, I think, when it comes to do's and don'ts.
Yeah, I mean, both gave really great points. Definitely watch yourself and make sure that you're not going to post something that will haunt you down the line in a career or wherever you go. And make sure you stick with, something that reflects your personality and you can have fun with it. Definitely keep up with the trends and, be careful of being overly comical about, bad situations, as Cody said, like COVID, or any other, disaster. I think, keeping it at, like safe with interests that you have and doing fun things with friends, that reflect you as a influencer, whether you like makeup or whether you like fashion or whether you like music. I feel like you can work off of that and still have a great Instagram or Facebook, and make sure you know the audience that's watching, and use a filter if it's just between your friends. Instagram has a great way to add a friends list so you can only share it with your close friends and not have anybody else see it. I think that's a great way to make sure that you're not, sending out things that, would be bad for a potential job or any other thing, and being conscientious of that and just having fun with it still.
I want to kind of build off this topic a little bit, probably more of a don't for students out there. But this question specifically for Leslie and Cody and Thomas, if you had anything to add, of course, please feel free to pipe in. But we did a careers in media webinar. It was really good. Students, if you haven't listened to that one yet, please consider checking that one out. But we had an author who writes for the New York Times. She did a investigative docuseries on Netflix. She's written some fairly controversial kind of things, a lot about innocent convictions and things like that. And she's talked about being a female journalist, getting bullied on social media for some of the things that she has put out. Do you guys have any experience in that, and how have you navigated that?
I think every person that works in media has had experience with this, regardless of gender. When I used to work at Taste of Country, which is like the largest country music website in the United States, I used to get hate mail. I posted an article about pregnant women fashion, and I was celebrating how beautiful they looked. And I got probably 15 emails of people telling me how much I hated other women. I mean, it happens probably almost daily. It gets easier to deal with. It's never fun, but I think it's really important to take it with a grain of salt and realize that these people behind this could never do your job. Number one, that's always something that I think about. And then right now during COVID, I think journalists are getting a ton of heat, and that sometimes can wear on me right now. So I think something that's helped me through this is hitting mute on people that are just consistently badgering me on social media, or blocking them if I have to. I try not to do that, but I will. And then taking a break from it. I mean, this weekend I took 2 days off from the news and from social media in general. I had things scheduled, and sometimes you have to take a break. It makes it easier to deal with.
Leslie,
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, yeah, there's going to be trolls no matter what you do. YouTube comments and Twitter tweets will happen that are hateful, and people will, definitely say some wrong things to you. You just, like Cody said, you definitely have to take a break from it and definitely ignore their comments. Don't interact with them, because it's just a lost, waste of energy, basically. But I feel like you can also put a positive spin on it if you want. I know that I saw a reporter who got made fun of wearing, so many different pantsuits, and she made a funny video about it, showcasing all of her pantsuits and, doing a little fashion show and making it, more about celebrating women and not worrying about what they're wearing. So I think there's different ways you can, kind of combat it, but you can also just ignore it, which, most of the time we do, because no matter what, it's going to happen. And that's one of the problems about sometimes social media, because it is kind of whatever, whatever can go, whatever anyone says can be posted, and, there's not really a filter unless you block them, and that's it.
Sometimes I will engage though, and it kind of depends on how I'm feeling that day. Somebody posted something recently. It was some ridiculous headline, and I said, wow, this is the best one I've seen. And someone was like, you must never have any fun at all, or you must never leave your house. And so I engaged with that comment as if I never leave my house and I'm just stuck here all the time. This was before the pandemic. And sometimes I will engage, but it's about the way that you handle it and trying to make light of it whenever you realize that you're not gonna change these people's viewpoint.
Yeah, and Thomas, you talked a little bit about helping launch social media platforms for politicians and for campaigns. I'm sure that can get a little ugly. You have any advice for maybe students that have found themselves in a bullying situation on social media, or maybe some do's and don'ts around that? Thomas, I think you may be muted.
I was, because I was coughing, not from the virus. So I think, Cody, I just want to disagree with a little tiny bit with what you said. From my observation, I think women have it worse. I think women get attacked more for their looks than men do. And it's so disturbing to me that I see it all day as well. And I've been the victim myself.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, and I've working in television news for as long as I did, I worked with a lot of female anchors and a lot of female reporters. And even before social media, I mean, the amount of mail that we would get criticizing a woman's looks on the air were, 10 to 20 times more than we would get criticizing any of the male anchors or reporters. And so you step out in front of the camera, you put yourself out there on a social platform as a female, I think you are going to be a target a little bit more. It's unfortunate, and I wish it weren't the case, and it breaks my heart, but I do believe that is the reality, at least anecdotally for me. One of the big things that has helped me, and I try to pass along the message too, is where does bullying come from? What is the root of it? And I always look for the why. Look past what someone is saying and look to why they are saying it. 9 times out of 10, any kind of bullying comment comes from someone else's place of insecurity, someone else's place of fear, someone else's place of self-doubt, self-hate. It's not about you, especially, and this was a really hard one for me to learn as a personal lesson over the last several years. Is a lot of the negative comments that I have received over the years were from people who don't know me. They may follow me, they may comment on something, they may, feel like they know me, but they don't know who I am as a person. We've never sat down and had a drink or had lunch. And so for someone to try to bully me, to say negative things about me, it's not about me. They're talking about themselves. They're talking about their own fears, their own insecurities. So just trying to park that is it's difficult. It's still difficult, absolutely, and will always be difficult. But at least that's where I try to come at it from a place of they're not talking about me. They're talking about their own pain, their own fear. So it's projecting out onto someone else who just happens to be in the public spotlight on social media, whatever that is. So that's how I've gotten through it, and that's how I've kind of coached a lot of the people that I work with to deal with those things. And to your question specifically about the political landscape, man, you talk about a group that just opens themselves up to all the slings and arrows. And most of the work that I've done with political candidates and elected officials has been really on the local and state level. And so not obviously in the national realm, but even on those local levels, you really just get everything. Everything people just feel like they can unleash on you. So you have to really have some thick skin in order to, weather that storm right now. Because if you announce your candidacy to run for whatever it is, just say Metro Council here in Nashville, I mean, people are going to throw everything at you. They're going to go through your Twitter account. They're going to go through your Instagram, through your Facebook, looking for every piece of ammo they can use against you. They're going to, find every off-color comment that you ever made. They're going to throw every single thing at you, and it's a challenge. So, that has to be something that you just say early on. I understand this. I recognize this, and this is part of the price of admission that I'm going to pay to be in this position for a while.
I think the idea of having a career in social media is relatively new. Thomas talked about over the last decade or so. This is something that's kind of happened, but every major corporation, every sports team, any kind of business that has a brand that they want to market has a social media account. So, how would a student go about making a career out of this if that was something that they might be interested in?
I'll take that one first because I have a simple answer. You got to learn how to write, man. Everything comes down to writing. And I swear, it really transcends even social media these days. But no matter what career path you're on, pay attention to the writing. You have to have it, whether you're going to be a physician, whether you're going to be an athlete, whatever you're going to do, you have to master the written word. It's not to say I'm Shakespeare. It's not to say I don't screw up 10 times a day, because I do. But you have to have a firm grasp on the English language and grammar, because if you don't, it's not going to fly. I mean, everything that you're sharing out on social media, unless you're just doing videos and pictures all day, you're going to have a ton of copy. You're going to have a ton of the written word in there. And there's nothing faster that's going to lead you to lose credibility and business than screwing up what you write. So I would say that's the first thing to always pay attention to is writing.
Yeah, we've heard that one across almost every single topic that we've had, is that writing can be such a lost art form, and it's really important that students gain that skill. Leslie and Cody, any other advice for students that maybe want to make a career out of social media?
I could not agree with what Thomas said more. I mean, I'm an English minor, so that's incredibly important to me. And I still see people who I follow that I'm interested in, either they're fellow journalists or something, and I see them making grammatical mistakes almost daily. And I'm like, it's so easy to download something that's going to spell check or grammar check for you. I mean, Grammarly is a free download you can put on your Google Chrome. It's obviously not perfect, but if you're really bad at it, it will help you. And it'll help you make your sentence the best that it can be, not just grammatically, but in an efficient way as well and help you get your point across.
Oh, I use Grammarly all
definitely.
day. You have to have something like that. I mean, one of the things that no matter what you do or how many times you reread something that you've written, you're always going to make a mistake. At least that's my own perspective. Is I can write something and I can read it 6 times over, and I'm still going to miss something that someone else wouldn't. Someone else, so if you don't have that third party, you don't have that second set of eyeballs to look at what you're reading, you have to use those tools. And Grammarly is a fantastic one.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, agree. Yeah, I mean, if you want a job in social media, definitely making sure you're writing the proper grammar is good, and making sure you're hashtagging and using everything that you're seeing with the trends, because things will get lost in the mix in a heartbeat. And you definitely don't want to do too many hashtags, and, just watch people, what they're doing, and observe. That's basically it.
So we all know how, to kind of build on this idea of social media as a career, we all know now that we live in a 24-hour news cycle with all the CNN, Fox News, and MSNBC, and all the different news stations that are going on. And I think it's pretty safe to say that social media never shuts down. So is that something that, and Leslie, if you want to go first on this one, is that something, though, but for all of you that you've had to learn to balance? I mean, I guess maybe it provides you a little bit of freedom in your schedule. But is it also something you've had to learn to balance so that it's not kind of overwhelming you and taking up all of your time?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's a fine line that we have to follow, but you kind of you give and take different things. Obviously, we can't always be on top of what's happening in the news, and we're sleeping at night. So I know things happen 24 hours, and we can't be posting something, while we're asleep. But I think the best part about social media is the resharing that we can do. And anytime someone creates any content, you can share it with your audience, whatever tools that they have with each platform. And repurposing things is also really great. I know that there's so many different things we can do creatively now with Instagram, which I love, and I know people are enjoying that. But I feel like that is really key for me, especially if I miss something and I see it on someone else's story. I can reshare it and have it for my audience and interact with other people that have posted it. It's just, being very connected to everyone that you are following, whether it's a public figure or your friends. Interaction is key with social media to get more views. So I think that is the way that I stay on top of things without, constantly being on my phone and not having a personal life,
I think resharing is such a great idea, and it's a great way to promote people that you admire as well. But you have to plan time away from social media or you're going to get burnout. I mean, it's plain and simple. So whenever I know, okay, I want to take this day off for whatever reason, I'll make sure that I have things scheduled to post and share during that time. And obviously, if something huge breaks, I'll reshare it or I'll take a few minutes to post about it on my own. But I think you have to plan time away when you work in social media.
Thomas, anything you'd like to add there?
Well, one of the things then this kind of segues back to something that Cody said earlier too, with the mental health issue. I loved what you said, Cody, about the flocking trolls. I mean, think about this. Social media is your feed should make you happy. Your feed should inspire you. Your feed should bring you joy. Your feed should educate you. Your feed should challenge you. And if it doesn't, change it. Block the people you don't want to follow. Unfollow the people you don't want to follow. And it doesn't matter if it's a family member. It doesn't matter if it's a friend. But if they're posting things and sharing things that bring you down, you don't have to experience that. And especially if we're talking about Twitter or Facebook or Instagram, your feed is your feed. Do with it what you like. And all of those things really, I think the mental health part of it, you can go down the rabbit hole of getting barraged with negativity. It can stress you the heck out. It can cause you a lot of anxiety. You also have control, and take that control and make sure that you're using it to curate a feed that brings you joy.
Yeah, I think
Thomas has even taught his mom this right now.
That's right. My mom is empowered, man. She's unfollowing people on Facebook or unfriending people on Facebook left and right that she just doesn't like. And she texts me, and she's, my mom's in her 70s, and she's loving the fact that she's feeling empowered now to unfriend a family member, a niece, a nephew, somebody that's just combative or shares, polar opposite messages that are not grounded in facts. And so she's feeling very liberated at the moment that she's found this freedom to unfriend people on Facebook. It's very powerful.
I think that's really good advice. Well, I want to thank you guys all for sharing your expertise in your careers, your tips, your do's, your don'ts, advice for students around social media. We end all of the webinars with 3 questions for our panelists. And so your answers to this can be outside the scope of our topic today. I'm going to kind of tie the first 2 questions into one question, one 2-part question for you. And Cody, maybe you want to start us out this time, but what's one piece of advice you had what is one thing you wish you knew while you were in college that you didn't know that you know now? And one big piece of advice for students.
I think when I was in college, I wish I would have understood the importance of networking and building my network at that age. And then one piece of advice I would tell people, especially in college, to get as involved as you can. And being in college is the perfect time to try new things, to see what you love and which way you want your career to go.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Thomas, what about you?
Oh, man, I think the one thing I wish I had learned in college, I wish I'd paid more attention to writing. I was a finance major in college who I thought I was going to follow in my family's footsteps of working for the IRS, honestly. And that was what my plan was. And as I got into it deeper and deeper, I realized that this was not the path for me. And so I changed directions and I got a job in journalism. But I wish I had paid more attention to the writing side and less attention to the math side in college. Not to say there's anything wrong with math. We need people that are great at math. But for me, for the path that I'm on now at this point in my life, I do wish I had paid more attention and made that more of a priority. And then the second part, I think just looking to help. Cody said getting involved, and I think I would just piggyback on that and say, look for opportunities to help. Find something that you're passionate about, find something that inspires you, and go do it and plug in. And you're going to meet more people that are doing things like that, and it'll just spiral you up rather than people that'll bring you down.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. Leslie, what about you?
Yeah, building on top of that as well, I wish I did more with computer coding and developing apps. When I was in school, it was more about traditional marketing. So I wish I could have stayed in college a little bit longer, I guess, before social media took off, because I was also still in college when Facebook was more of a high school app or program, really. But no, I think the best advice for people, networking being key as well, and to, just be on top of things, build your portfolio, anything you do, add it to your resume. Like any program you learn, and make sure that you're diversifying yourself, because right now the job market's going to be so competitive, especially when it opens back up, and it's going to be very hard to go up against people who have lost their jobs. So you need to present yourself in the best way, and have a great portfolio to have on hand, showing what your skills are, and giving people an idea of what you're capable of.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice. I know a lot of our students are really concerned about, we have lots of students that will be graduating here in just a few weeks and are really concerned about the job market. I think that's really good advice for them. So we wrap all the webinars with the same question. Leslie, we can start with you this time. And this is for all of you. It's very clear that you all really enjoy what you do, and that you're all really great at what you do. But if you weren't working in media or social media doing what you're doing now, and you could do anything, and money wasn't an issue, or money and time, and maybe talent or ability, but you could be doing anything else in the world, Leslie, what would you be doing?
Oh, that's a good question. I think just like what I had from my college knowledge, back in the day, I would love to be working for an app company based somewhere in Silicon Valley in California. I think that would be a thrill to be part of that because I think that's where the future is right now, is building apps and making things easier for people to get content online. But I think just having that capability would be amazing.
Yeah, that's a good one. Cody?
I think I'd probably either want, these are two very different things, but I think I would either want to host a talk show or I would want to be a fashion stylist.
I really thought you were going to go with like animal sanctuary.
Dude, that's mine.
No, because
Sorry, Thomas, I stole your go.
I was just gonna say I would love to run a dog sanctuary in Costa Rica.
Oh, in Costa
Very
Rica.
nice.
Why not? You said money was no issue, right?
No, money's no issue.
Right.
I mean, I always tell people I want to be a golfer. I don't have that talent or ability, so we're dreaming big here.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, Leslie, Cody, Thomas, thank you all so much for being here today and taking the time to talk a little bit about your careers and your advice that you have for students that are interested in social media and just how they can build their own brand and awareness now while they're in high school and college. We really appreciate the time that you've taken today. And thanks so much for being here.
You got it.
You're
Thanks for
welcome.
having
No
us.
problem.
yeah, it was fun.
And to our students that are tuning in today, thank you for listening. I know that I learned a ton about this. I am by no means a social media expert. And so listening to our three experts on the panel today, I know I took a lot away and I hope you did as well. Hang on for just another minute while you learn how to make sure that this will count towards your community service requirement. But we appreciate you listening in. We hope that you will listen to more of our webinar series at www.tnAchieves.org. And we hope that you have a great day. Thank you for watching this installment of the Tennessee Achieves Virtual Community Service webinar. Your attendance will be automatically recorded and your 1 hour of community service is being credited to you. Please click Submit on this screen to ensure that your attendance is recorded for you. For this community service opportunity, you will not need to complete the community service form. We hope you found this opportunity to be engaging and informative. Please watch more of this series by visiting www.tnachieves.org. We hope you have a great day. Thank you.